Earth still holds far more hidden places than we once imagined, with landscapes quietly existing beyond the limits of ordinary understanding. Have you ever seen a seaside cave, where the walls are made of perfect hexagonal stone columns, standing so close together they seem cast from a mold? And would you believe there's a cave system deep underground that glows silently in the dark without a single source of outside light? Join us as we uncover natural wonders that remain quietly present in places no one expects, and perhaps see the world in a different way. Before we begin our journey into the hidden wonders of nature, we have a question that might just make you think twice. What natural phenomenon causes the northern light? Please leave your answer in the comments below. Now it's time to begin our journey into landscapes that may seem familiar, yet still hold secrets few have ever seen. Waitomo Glowworm Caves. Beneath the remote hillside on New Zealand's North Island, the entrance to Waitomo Cave is hidden among natural limestone outcrops and low shrubs, barely noticeable from afar. The cave's chambers stretch deep underground, shaped over millions of years by silent erosion that left behind a winding network of uneven stone walls. On these rough surfaces, thousands of glowworms remain fixed in place, each one emitting a soft, bluish light that turns the darkness into an underground sky. The glow is steady and quiet, spread across the cave ceilings and walls like scattered constellations in a place untouched by daylight. No matter how long one looks, the lights never move, and the stillness makes it feel as though time itself has stopped inside the cave. Angkor Thom. The southern gate of Angkor Thom stands tall, with 4 massive stone faces carved into a single tower, each aligned precisely with a cardinal direction. A straight stone path cuts across the open ground in front, drawing the eye inward toward low platforms and scattered stepped towers. The structures are built from large sandstone blocks placed on square foundations that repeat across the terrain in a steady rhythm. Along the flat ground, stone walls stretch outward, some still intact, others broken in parts with no signs of restoration. Every few steps, smaller towers rise at measured intervals, forming a quiet sequence that holds the space without obstruction. No fences or added structures interrupt the view. Each building stands just far enough from the next to keep the layout quietly continuous. Wenmei Village. Hidden in a narrow valley in Guizhou Province, Wenmei Village is surrounded by low forested hills, completely separated from the rest of the region. The small wooden and stone houses are built close to the terrain, connected by moss-covered stone paths that remain quiet due to years of little foot traffic. Most of the houses are single-story with low, weathered tile roofs, designed to fit the slope and stay comfortable in the area's cool, humid climate. There are no motor roads, no signs, and no public tourist routes leading here. It's entirely off the map for visitors. This isolation has preserved the village's stillness and harmony, with the surroundings appearing untouched, like a quiet scene that was never arranged. Haleakala National Park. A narrow road winds evenly along the slope of a large hill on the eastern side of Maui, hugging the gradually rising ground toward the highlands of Haleakala National Park. The dark asphalt stands out against the old basalt soil beneath, and each curve along the way seems to mark a new level in altitude, climbing steadily with the terrain. As the road ascends, the landscape turns dry and sparse, with scattered stones and low tufts of grass growing at wide intervals. From above, the hillside appears to rise out of a soft layer of white clouds that blankets everything below and completely obscures the horizon. The view feels cut off from the rest of the island, as if the road traces a quiet line between the earth beneath and the open air above. Fingal's Cave. Nestled along a grey, rocky headland on Scotland's west coast, a vaulted cave mouth opens just above the waterline, forming a passage deep into the earth that has long been sealed by time. The cave walls are made of towering hexagonal basalt columns, tightly joined together like an ancient row of massive pillars rising from the deep blue sea. This formation was created by slowly cooling lava that cracked evenly over millions of years beneath an ancient ocean, resulting in a seamless rock surface. Sounds inside bounce off the hard stone walls, echoing within a natural stone dome, creating a wide and profound acoustic effect. Though only a few miles from shore, the cave remains hidden from view due to rugged terrain and waves constantly washing over it, keeping it out of common awareness. Hatcher Pass. A narrow, snow-covered road appears like the only carved line across the fully white mountains of the Talkeetna Range, rising gradually along the sloping ridges. The landscape stretches wide in every direction, with slopes flowing into each other, thick ice covering everything except for a few rocks barely pushing through the snow. There are no footprints or signs of movement. Every ridge and valley sits still beneath a frozen surface. The soft winter light highlights the raw shape of the terrain, making the entire mountain area feel paused in a single unmoving moment. It's the lone presence of this road, cutting through such a silent and traceless region, that makes this one of the most isolated winter routes in all of Alaska. Perito Moreno Glacier. The Perito Moreno Glacier stretches across the southern Andes in Argentina, reaching nearly 20 miles between mountain slopes and glacial lakes. Its surface rises with sharp ridges and deep grooves, where jagged ice meets pale blue cracks, forming a rough but orderly maze. Farther in, The ice thickens into stacked layers, each pressed tightly like shelves holding the weight from above. Some parts stand upright, like frozen walls, while the peaks gather into long, nearly parallel rows shaped by steady pressure. Every so often, large blocks break off and drop into the frozen stillness below, disappearing without stirring the calm around them. Table Mountain. A flat-top mountain stands right next to the city of Cape Town, rising against the blue sky and the low-lying coast at the southern tip of Africa. Its summit stretches nearly 3 miles across, lying flat like a giant tabletop just above the crowded urban area below. Steep cliffs surround the top, made from ancient sandstone, with reddish-brown tones that shift slightly with the daylight. When clouds move over, a thin layer settles on the summit like a white scarf, making the mountain's shape even easier to recognize from a distance. The wide, flat peak and sheer cliffs right next to a residential area create a clear, natural boundary between mountain and sea, making this place the most striking landmark at the far end of South Africa. Owl Creek Pass. This mountain pass lies in western Colorado, cutting through low mountain ranges and broadleaf forests, forming a highland corridor that links the sandstone plateaus behind. The terrain shifts noticeably between gentle slopes, vertical rock faces, and narrow valleys tucked in between, giving the route a sense of constant rise and openness. The bedrock here was formed from ancient sediment layers, interrupted by bands of harder stone, creating a clearly layered structure visible even from midway up the pass. Since the late 19th century, the area once served as a minor route for settlers and miners, but was later preserved almost untouched for those seeking out wild landscapes. In the fall, golden colors spread evenly across the hillsides, covering the entire forest and creating a seamless background around the upright rock formations at the heart of the valley. Milford Sound. Milford Sound is located in the southwest of New Zealand's South Island, a narrow fjord carved deep into the land by ancient glaciers moving through tall mountain ranges. On either side of the fjord, steep cliffs rise like natural stone walls over 4,000 feet high, stretching along the dark, calm waters below. A thin layer of fresh water rests on the surface of the sea, making the water appear deeper and darker, while hiding the salty water beneath. At the base of the cliffs, bands of rock jut out along old fault lines, revealing signs of the glacier activity that shaped this valley over thousands of years. All of these features come together to create a landscape that is both majestic and peaceful, offering a sense of separation and uniqueness from the outside world. Cliffs of Moher. The towering cliffs stretch for more than 5 miles along the western coast of Ireland, forming a massive wall of stone that separates the Greenland from the wide-open ocean ahead. Layers of ancient rock lie stacked horizontally, worn down by wind and waves over millions of years, revealing flat, clear surfaces that run along the edge. The landscape drops off suddenly from level ground to the cliff's edge, with no gradual slope, making the boundary between land and sea sharp and absolute. This area is exposed to strong winds throughout the year, especially in the early morning when low clouds cover the cliff tops, limiting visibility for hours. This place once lay deep beneath the sea, and the sedimentary rock layers seen today were formed over 300 million years ago. Its most striking feature is the long stretch of unbroken vertical cliffs, with wide open space and bare rock surfaces left untouched by plants or soil. Moab. Located along the eastern edge of the Colorado Plateau, the Moab region stretches across a dry, rugged landscape shaped by wide expanses of exposed rock. Massive sandstone formations rise unevenly from the ground like giant pillars, arranged in steps that resemble a long chain of walls reaching toward the horizon. fractures and cross-sections in the rock expose layer upon layer of sediment, each one recording the passage of time over millions of years with remarkable clarity. Narrow valleys lie between the rock clusters, their floors covered in loose gravel and marked by the harsh, unyielding nature of the terrain. In the early morning and late afternoon, angled sunlight from both sides of the slopes casts shifting tones across the surface, deep reds, soft oranges, and muted grays blending into one another. What sets the Moab landscape apart is the combination of steep formations, clearly defined rock structures, and the full visibility of ancient geologic layers rarely found elsewhere in the United States. Baikeng Village. Located on a gentle slope in the southern mountains of Guangdong Province, Baikeng is an old village with a layout that has remained nearly unchanged for centuries. The pale soil around the village is made of exposed limestone, where the top layer has worn away, revealing the light-colored rock beneath. The houses follow the natural incline of the hill, connected closely in clear steps that form a layered pattern when seen from a distance. The space between buildings is narrow, but wide enough for light to pass through and leave visible streaks across the walls. The entire village has kept its original mountain layout, preserving the shape of a traditional hillside settlement almost completely. Drift Creek Falls. A narrow suspension bridge stretches across a deep forest canyon, hanging quietly above layers of moss-covered stone and damp evergreen branches. Below it, Drift Creek Falls drops over 70 feet from a hidden cliff edge, with the water folding in on itself before landing on jagged rocks. The cliff face is coated in moisture and streaked with dark vertical marks formed by steady flow and shaded growth. Surrounding the falls, dense fir trees rise close together, their trunks straight and tall, forming a thick green wall that blocks most of the sky. What makes this place stand out is how the falls remain partly hidden until the very last turn, where the sound grows louder before the view finally opens. Mendenhall Glacier. A massive glacier stretches more than 13 miles across southeastern Alaska, resting between dark mountain ranges, with its frozen edge gently pressing into a calm, mirror-like lake. Its upper surface is marked by deep, jagged crevasses, cutting through the snow to expose thick layers of compressed blue ice that have formed over many years. Around the edges, large broken slabs of ice lie scattered and packed together, shaped like frozen stone blocks slowly pushed forward over time. Further out, low hills stand stripped of vegetation, covered only in thin snow, making the frozen emptiness of this wide valley feel even more complete. Most striking of all, the glacier ends in a line of smooth, dome-like ice arches stacked by age, each layer quietly recording a different winter that once passed through this land. Huaguoyuan Community. This large residential area sits in the southwest part of Guiyang City, built on a lowland space that was leveled between surrounding limestone hills. From above, the neighborhood appears like a closed arc, with tall apartment blocks standing close together along wide main roads. The land was originally a natural basin, once seasonally flooded, before being transformed into a dense urban zone among the hills. Around the edges, you can still find rocky slopes and old fractures in the ground, showing signs of earlier geological shifts. What makes this place stand out is the extremely high building density packed into a limited space, forming a compressed architectural mass between the ridgelines. Rovinj. A narrow peninsula stretches gently into the Adriatic Sea, with old stone houses stacked along the rising slope that leads toward a small, central hill. At the top, a tall bell tower stands above the red tiled rooftops, clearly visible from every direction, like a silent marker of the town's heart. The shoreline is rugged, with uneven rocks wrapping around the base of the hill, forming a natural barrier between land and sea. From a distance, the entire town appears to emerge straight from the water, shaped by the land's contours, rather than any design. What makes this place stand out is how the buildings and terrain seem to grow together, as if time had quietly arranged them into one unbroken form. Wulingyuan Scenic Area. A vast region of sandstone pillars stretches across central China, with over 3,000 vertical columns rising straight from the forest floor like the remains of an ancient stone forest. Each pillar stands hundreds of feet tall, some capped with a patch of trees, while others appear completely bare, shaped only by time and wind. The terrain is deeply fractured, with narrow ridges, hidden ravines, and steep gorges running between the spires, making the landscape feel like a maze suspended in air. Mist often clings to the mid-level slopes, obscuring the bases and revealing only the tops of the columns, which appear to float above a sea of clouds. The stone here is quartz-rich sandstone, weathered over millions of years into straight, narrow towers instead of rounded hills. Unlike many mountain ranges, the verticality here is not from uplift, but from erosion, carving down around harder stone, leaving pillars behind like teeth in the earth. Scattered among the peaks are small plateaus and stone bridges formed naturally, linking some of the towers and giving views over entire valleys. Hidden trails and walkways have been added along cliffs and across gaps, following the natural lines of the rock, but never disturbing the larger formation. The sheer density and height of the stone spires make this one of the most visually complex and unusual landscapes in the world. Hard to believe, even when seen with your own eyes. Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal in winter stretches like an endless sheet of ice, running over 300 miles across the frozen land of southern Siberia. The surface is smooth and tinted with a quiet grey-blue tone, showing spider-web-like cracks and frozen air bubbles trapped deep below. Along the edges, bare mounds and scattered rocks are lightly dusted with snow, marking a natural border between the flat lake and the higher ground. Several large rocks rise from the ice, their surfaces worn smooth and edges clearly shaped, standing like forgotten markers. As temperatures shift, the ice lets out sharp cracking sounds that echo across the vast space like distant metal chimes. When the light grows dim, the ice turns hazy like a frosted glass floor with no clear boundary between the lake and the open air around it. Wugu Gorge. A narrow gorge cuts deep into the southern hills of Chongqing, with two vertical cliffs rising over 1,000 feet, forming a closed passage between dark limestone ridges. Inside lies a deep ravine with a narrow riverbed where the water stays almost still, and the cliff walls are marked by long vertical cracks along the rock surface. Light only comes straight down from above, forming thin streaks that cling closely to the rock without spreading through the space. What sets this place apart is the even height of both cliffs and the fully enclosed structure, separated from the open valleys nearby. Santorini. Santorini appears as a steep crescent of land, rising sharply from the Aegean Sea, with white cliffs layered in black and red rock from past volcanic eruptions. At the top, flat-roofed houses painted in white cluster tightly along the ridge, forming a clean line that follows the curve of the caldera. The surrounding sea is deep and still, with the inner bay shaped like a wide basin bordered by rugged edges of lava rock. Each section of the island shows a different stage of volcanic layering, from smooth, ash-covered slopes to jagged stone ridges. The land curves inward at sharp angles, creating small inlets and sudden drops, with stair-like paths built directly into the cliff face. Even from a distance, the contrast between the bright rooftops and the dark stone beneath them marks this place as something shaped by both time and eruption. Jackson Hole. This wide valley sits quietly between the Teton Range and the Gros Ventre Range, stretching over 45 miles from north to south across a broad and flat landscape. Long ago, ancient glaciers carved through this region, leaving behind soft sediment layers beneath the valley floor and scattered gravel plains near the edges. Geologically, it's a fault valley where the land dropped lower than the surrounding mountains, creating a sharp elevation contrast without needing steep slopes. At over 6,000 feet above sea level, the dry and cool climate supports only short grasses, shrubs, and widely spaced pine trees, keeping views clear across the open land. What makes Jackson Hole unique is its unobstructed shape. Wherever you stand, the surrounding peaks remain in full view, with nothing in between to block the horizon. Baijiang Waterfall. This waterfall drops straight from a cliff, over 300 feet tall, hidden deep in the forested mountains of southern China, surrounded by layered limestone walls. The water falls in a single line from above to the rocks below, forming a white ribbon that hangs cleanly against the cliff face. The cliff is made of ancient sediment layers, marked by vertical cracks that give the surface a rough texture but still hold a solid, defined shape. The area around the waterfall is thick with tropical forest, where trees grow close to the cliffs, and the air stays humid all year long. What makes Baijiang stand out is its continuous drop. It stays unbroken from top to bottom, unlike many waterfalls in the region. Matterhorn. This mountain sits right on the border between Switzerland and Italy, rising nearly 15,000 feet, with a steep, pointed summit that stands out across the Alps. Its four sides form sharp, triangular faces, shaping a pyramid-like peak that remains visible even when the sky is filled with clouds. The Matterhorn was formed from ancient ocean floor rock, lifted and tilted over millions of years by deep movements in the Earth's crust. What makes it truly distinct is the sharp contrast between the dark stone walls and the snowy base that has stayed unchanged for generations. Cliff Village. A small cluster of houses clings to a sheer cliffside, the entire settlement suspended high above in a narrow ledge carved into the mountain's face. The rooftops follow the slope of the terrain, pressed tightly together, as if holding their place between sharp stone outcrops. Surrounding the area are broken ridgelines and plunging drops, making this spot feel almost entirely cut off from the rest of the mountain region. Huangxian Valley. Tucked in the mountains of southern China, this narrow gorge is framed by two towering cliffs that rise like a stone gate into the sky. At night, soft golden lights from nearby homes cast gentle glows along the rock edges, drawing quiet lines that stretch through the darkness. The whole area turns into a black and gold scene, where the sharp contrast makes the cliff shapes stand out more clearly than at any other time. Tsingy de Bemaraha. A vast field of ancient limestone, weathered over millions of years, rises into thousands of sharp, vertical peaks across a dry and rugged surface. The terrain is deeply fractured into narrow crevices and trenches, turning the entire area into a jagged maze with no continuous flat ground. The silver-gray color of the rock remains consistent throughout, catching light differently on each angled face and highlighting their vertical shape. The entire space is enclosed by uneven stone walls, rising and falling without pattern, stretching in every direction with no natural breaks. Fenglinbuye. Tucked deep within a narrow limestone valley, the village sits tightly against towering cliffs that rise several hundred feet in every direction. Dark tiled roofs scatter along the sloping ground, blending into the uneven terrain where the line between stone and shelter is hard to define. Behind it, ridgelines stack, layer upon layer, sealing off the area from its surroundings and forming a natural barrier of near-complete isolation.